Hey everyone, I'm John Jennings, your friendly tour guide for the second installment of this little tutorial series. Today we're going to be talking about statewide planning goals 2, 3, 4, and 5, which we think are probably the most relevant to this work. So you probably remember from last time, there's a total of 19 statewide planning goals that have been adopted by LCDC. Here's a small subset of them. Statewide Planning Goal 2 requires that local governments have comprehensive land use plans and that those plans have an adequate factual basis. Goals 3 and 4 call for the inventorying and protection of agricultural and forest lands. That means farming, ranching, and forest lands. And unsurprisingly, a majority of the lands outside of towns and cities in Oregon, fall into one of those two categories. Goal 5 identifies a really a broad swath of natural resources and other values that are really special places and would deserve or otherwise require additional consideration. So each of the goals we just talked about is further interpreted through an administrative rule promulgated by LCDC, and this is where the details really live. So, for example, the element of Goal 2 that identifies a pathway for the ability to consider uses or activities that may not otherwise be available is further articulated in Division 4 through what we call the exceptions process, and that is the opportunity to demonstrate based on fact and evidence that a use that wouldn't otherwise be allowed based on one or more statewide planning goals could be or should be. And that's not always easy to accomplish. There's a high burden of proof associated, and there's risk, just as there is in any discretionary land use proceeding, but it is available and has been used. This will probably make a little more sense as we get into some of these other planning goals. Statewide Planning Goal 3, which protects our state's farm and ranching lands and economies, is implemented and interpreted through Division 33, which is another administrative rule adopted by LCDC, which includes all of the types of uses, farm and otherwise, that can be allowed on lands protected under Goal 3. And does include solar. Solar can be allowed through conditional use process. Is subject to a variety of criteria. And also to certain thresholds. So for high value farmland, the best is a threshold of 12 acres. Arable lands, which are basically cultivated or tillable land, is 20 acres. And non-arable land, which I now see I've misspelled, apologize for that, has a threshold of 320 acres. And to go above or beyond those thresholds would require an exception. So here we are at Goal 5, which numerically is at the end of our little list here, but in other ways is front and center to the work here. Goal 5 is administered through Division 23, which identifies a whole suite of resource values and categories, and includes a category called energy sources, which is kind of an underappreciated feature here. But this is where we're really going to ask the RAC to dig in with us, because we're going to rewrite this provision. And our expectation is that we design a program that's voluntary for counties should they want to, but understand the characteristics of lands that are well suited for successful solar development, as well as well suited to avoid possible conflict with other land uses. And furthermore, the expectation would be that the identification of these types of lands would allow for larger projects than would otherwise be available under the thresholds in Division 6 and Division 33 that otherwise protect farm and forest land. And so to accomplish this and thereby allow them to avoid the exception need and be a little more straightforward, maybe a little simpler citing process, we'll need to look at under the hood again in those other rules to make sure everything's aligned and everything's put together right. So similar to Goal 3, statewide planning Goal 4, forest lands, is also implemented primarily through an administrative rule, which is Division 6, that lists the types of uses that can be allowed or considered on forest land, and it does include energy facility. It doesn't specifically say solar or any other specific type, but it does say essentially that commercial facilities for producing power can be considered, and the threshold on all forest land is 10 acres. And so to go beyond a 10-acre project on land protected as forest land would require an exception. So to try to summarize quickly, and I know I've scrambled these around a little bit, but Goal 2 is administered by Division 4, which includes the exception opportunity, which provides a pathway to demonstrate that a use that wouldn't otherwise be allowable could be considered. Goal 4, our forest lands goal, is administered through Division 6, which has a 10-acre threshold for the siting of power facilities. Goal 3, our agricultural lands goal, farming and ranching, is carried out by Division 33, which has the different thresholds of 12, 20, and 320 acres for photovoltaic solar based on land qualities. And Goal 5 is carried out by Division 23, which includes a segment on energy sources, which we're going to rewrite and expect that will result in the ability to cite larger projects without an exception. Woo! Apologize, I just watched a documentary on Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. So that's it for today, you guys. I know it's a lot, and please don't feel like you're expected to memorize all these rule numbers and so on and so forth. If there's one takeaway, I would hope that it is that we do have administrative rules to help us implement the statewide planning goals, and that is where the Rules Advisory Committee will be helping us. So again, thank you so much for your interest. Continue to encourage you to approach this conversation with an open mind and a creative spirit and a sense of humor. And we'll be in touch soon.